Radio show. We are broadcasting on Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel, everywhere else except the radio. But anyways, so today we're going to be talking to Mr. David Stout, County Commissioner for Precinct 2. Just for those who don't know, me and Mr. Bautista, we started this probably like 2 years ago. I've been doing it for 7 years, but Mr. Bautista and me, 2 years ago, we started to do is bring candidates to you to make the decision. We give them a time to talk about their platform, and it's your choice to make the decision if you want to vote for them or not. For me, this is part of what's called the Rev Up Texas. It's a nonpartisan initiative to educate voters with disabilities to come and vote, because our voices should be heard too. So with that being said, everyone, good afternoon to Mr. Bautista and Mr. Stout.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Stout, I know everybody knows your name. I know that for sure. But could you just give those individuals, those voters who don't know about you, a little background?
Sure. So, as you said, my name is David Stout. And first of all, I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to join you this afternoon and talk about a lot of the great things that we've been doing in my office over the last 7 years since we've been in office. I'm originally from Wyoming. I moved to El Paso when I was about 11 years ago. I used to be a journalist, and I was a journalist for about 10 years, and I did my last stint as a reporter with Noticias 26 Univision. And so I moved here in 2010 and worked for Univision for a little bit. And then in 2011, our former state senator, Jose Rodriguez, hired me on his staff to be a communications, do bilingual media, and as well as binational affairs. And so I worked for him for about 3.5 years. And while I was working for him, I got really involved with the Democratic Party. I became a precinct chair, and then I decided to run for commissioner back in 2014. So I've been in office since 2015, and I've just really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to serve the people of Precinct 2. And, I feel like we've done some really great things. I feel like we've been very effective. I'm a very strong leader, very progressive, and, very effective. And I like to consider myself as fearless too. I don't back down. I'm not beholden to any large special interests, and I do what I think is right. We work really hard. We've gotten many projects, many policies. We're very policy driven, policy oriented, and that's what we like to work on. And is to be as efficient with taxpayer money as possible, and make sure that we provide a really high level of service at the county. And I'm here because I've decided to run for election. I would like to have a third term if the folks will allow me to, and so I'm happy to offer and my time and my experience now. I think I've become a seasoned commissioner. I'm not a beginner anymore. And I've learned a lot over the years, and I think that experience is going to be really beneficial for voters. And so That's why I'm running for office again. I think there's lots of great things that we can continue to work on in the realm of economic development, in the realm of police reform, in the realm of health, providing access to healthcare, and many other areas. So,
Well, that's what I'm going to applaud you on that, Mr. Stout, because I'm not going to lie to you. It's been a while back when I first heard your name was through Abel Rodriguez when you were on his show. And then I started hearing you come into the different social, I guess, events through the past 2 years, police reform and LGBTQ issues. But one thing I really noticed you a lot in, and as a matter of fact, me and my wife had gone down to when they're doing the protest for the Duranguito, and I saw a lot of negative comments regarding, why is he there? Why? Well, you're a commissioner, hello. But the point is, why is that important to you for Duranguito for being now it's being a Texas historical site? Why is that important to you?
well, it's important to me because it is the first platted neighborhood in El Paso. It has so much historical value. Whether we're talking about indigenous folks or whether we're talking about the Spanish or the Mexican era or the even the Chinese our Jewish heritage as well. It's a very interesting and just full of history. And I just thought that it would be a shame to raise those buildings and erase that history from our town, from our city's core. And so I represent downtown. I represent that area. And one of the policy priorities or priorities of mine that I've discovered, a way that the county can be more involved when it comes to economic development and attracting tourism is through historic preservation and heritage and heritage tourism. And so I think we've done a really terrible job of selling our history here in El Paso. More and more people travel to places to visit sites, historical sites, and people spend more money when they're participating in heritage tourism. El Paso only gets about 2% of the tourism dollars that are spent in the state of Texas. And and I think part of it is because we don't do the best job at looking at preserving these sites in these areas, and not just that, but selling them. I was very surprised that we hadn't really ever inventoried all of the historic assets and buildings that we have downtown. And so that's why one of my main projects when I first started my first year in office in late 2015 and early 2016 was to hire a consultant to come in and do a architectural historical survey of our downtown. And we discovered that we have 1,000 historic buildings in our downtown. It's one of the largest concentration of historic buildings in the American Southwest. And our goal was after that was to create one big historical district. We ended up looking to create two, one downtown and one in Segundo Barrio. The downtown district has been put on hold for now, but the Segundo Barrio district was just created. It was just nominated by the National Register for Historic Places. That's a huge win, I think, for El Paso, and it's going to put us on the map when it comes to heritage tourism. People that are looking at visiting historic districts. I think it's really going to be a game changer. It's going to attract a lot of folks to Segundo Barrio, and it's going to do a lot for economic development. And so, going back to Duranguito, the reason why I got involved there is because there's just so much value there, and I feel like we really need to, after we have taken inventory, sit down and say, okay, these are areas that we need to save, and these are areas that we can look at.
How you're saying, Mr. Stout, is that 2% of the Texas tourism money, folks. Just to put this in concept, and I'm not very educated when it comes to it, but I've heard stories through Max Grossman. Is Masia, New Mexico, Laredo, Texas. They make millions upon millions on tourism. So when people say, why is he there? Or why is anybody down there in Duranguito? Who cares? it's because, it's like Mr. Stout was saying, that's economic growth that could really spur downtown. Because right now, about downtown, I mean, everybody knows this. Like I said, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but is that, downtown's become a place of where people are leaving instead of going to. And I work downtown. Well, when I work from home, but I work downtown. All my favorite restaurants. Hey, I'm a big guy. I like to eat. All my favorite restaurants are gone. They closed up and left.
Well, what I'm interested in finding out is who's looking to for the people of the Duranguito. I mean, those most of those people didn't want to leave,
Right.
and so who's looking out for them? Our city council, our mayor, the people should be looking out for them too. And I just feel like maybe you're one of the few that has been looking out for them. But um, how can they get a hold of you personally to to maybe give you their ideas, or to get you to see what issues they have that are related to them, to your district anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always available, whether it's virtually or on the phone. We're starting to get back into the office a lot. We were closed down in person due to the pandemic, but we're starting to get back to the office. The office is down there at the courthouse. You can walk in and come to my office, but if you can't get to the courthouse, my number is 546-2111, and my email is commissioner2@epcounty.com. Folks can send us an email or give us a call if they have any issues or if they want to talk about something. And you're right. It's important to be speaking up for the folks that live down there. Most of them have left. They were displaced, unfortunately, but there still are two people that live in Duranguito, Doña Tonita and Romelia. And they're holding on. Those are some brave women, and they're doing such an amazing job of talking about Duranguito and why it's important to them and why they feel that it shouldn't be raised. They spent lots and lots of their own personal time to bring that neighborhood, make it safe, keep it clean. There was some federal money that they helped to bring down a number of years ago to redo some of the the streets and the sidewalks and the lighting and such. And so these folks are important. And unfortunately, in El Paso, I think we have a huge problem with just displacing and removing folks that are economically challenged, that are poor, that and many times they're people of color, they're Hispanic or Mexican American, or even African American, and we just do a terrible job. The next big displacement is going to be because of the widening of I-10,
Yep.
and the downtown area, and basically between Copia and Executive Center. And we all know that when I-10 was put into our downtown back in the 60s, it separated a lot of these neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods, African American neighborhoods, Mexican American neighborhoods, the Lincoln neighborhood, the Chamizal area. And those people are always people that live south of I-10, whether it's in the downtown area or just east of downtown, have always taken the brunt of all of these terrible development decisions that our community's leaders have made over the years. And I feel that it's incumbent upon me as the representative of those people to speak out about.
I'm gonna give you an example, Mr. Stout, of what you just said, the ballpark. And I know people have their opinion about the ballpark, and I have my own personal opinion on that. But just to give you, capulate how inconvenient or the not seeing the foresight regarding the ballpark is. My grandma, rest in peace now, but my uncle, he lives right behind the ballpark. So check this out, folks. Is there certain times and dates and time that if you go to his house, you have to put a tag on your car. If you don't, they'll tow it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go say, come see my Theo, we forget to post a tag, they're gonna tow the car. So I'm just saying it's so ridiculous about what they, like you said, the foresight of planning out and when it impacts people of low, that gap, like you said, people of color and low income. But I'm gonna segue into this, Mr. Stout, and I want to applaud you, like I did when we spoke to Art Prieto. If you came forward when we had an issue, when I say we, the people, a group of us came together and we approached the city, you, Mr. Stout, Veronica Escobar, and Art Prieto took the time. You personally, you didn't send a representative. You did participate in the discussions on how to make um, vaccination and information accessible for those with disabilities. Because what was happening, folks, at the beginning of the pandemic, they were sending out alerts on TV about washing your hands, where to get tested, and at the beginning, but yet they were not accessible for individuals like me and Mr. Bautista are blind, and so now they are. And number two, if someone wants to get tested or now vaccinated, some of the sites were not accessible. But thank you to you, Mr. Stout and Art Fieta and Veronica Escobar, of course, the city, which is Julio Perez. Now that's accessible. But I want to applaud you because I think you being part of the discussion was very important because you didn't, and I say that for a reason. You didn't send a representative. You stood in those meetings. There were several meetings. So I do applaud you, and I just want to ask you, why was it important for you to participate when you could have easily sent a representative?
Well, I mean, I think it's very simple, we need to make sure that we make things accessible for everybody, and especially folks that have disabilities, right? Um, and I participated because you asked me to, right?
You
I'm
could have
happy.
said someone, yeah.
I thank you for wanting to involve me, and thank you for reaching out to me and making me aware of those things.
But you hold
Because
on. The reason I did that, Mr. Stout, and not because you're on the, but you brought it up. The reason I did that because I saw you so active in the community. I saw you, everything that comes up within the city regarding what like you said, police reform or this or that. You're always, in that discussion, and I think it's important to be part of the community to understand. I think, if I'm not correct, Sissy Bird said that when she was on her show about being involved in the community, understanding the community, and that helped because now you know what's, for example, people with disabilities. And actually, I looked it up yesterday. I was doing some of those research, and I saw a video of you on YouTube when the president was going to come to El Paso, the past president, regarding the shooting on October 3rd. You were on, I think, CBSN, or you were on one of those shows, I forgot. But that's what I meant. Like, what I'm trying to say is you're involved in the community, and that's what I think politicians need to be. Not just because I'm going to be reelected. Oh, what a coincidence! I'm doing this now. But like for you, Mr. Stout, you've always been in there. That's why, you know what? I think he could help, and you did help, and I do applaud you for that because that's not for now, Mr. Stout, but for the future, God forbid, the next quote unquote disaster or pandemic. Now there's guidelines put in place to help people with disabilities. But with that being said, Mr. Bautista, you have a question, sir?
No, I just I have to agree with everything that you've stated, and this is why people are really involved with him because he's always there, and it's just a question of asking him, can you help us here? Can you help us there? It's like in Segundo Barrio, Segundo Barrio right now looks pretty good. I grew up in El Segundo Barrio, and I hate to see El Segundo Barrio disappear as El Segundo Barrio because, we still go to Bowie Bakery, we still go, to those areas where we grew up, And just the other day we were talking to Mr. Morales, who has who's participates helping kids and adults.
Oh, the Barrio Sports
In the
Club.
barrio, yeah, and it brought memories. I was telling my son, I said, I grew up there, and it we need to go back and show our appreciation for where we came from, and so I just think that here Mr. Stout gives to the community a very good example of what a good politician should be, not just show up on during election time, but he's always around. And if you need him, you call him up and say, I've got this issue here. Can you help me? Now he may not be able to because it may be out of his reach or whatever, but you have somebody that you can contact.
Now, let me ask you this, Mr. Stout, and this is coming towards the end of the show. What do you have planned if you get reelected? What's on your, I guess, your plate for the next? Is it 2 years or 4 years?
And they're 4-year terms.
Yeah.
4 years.
So what's on your plate for the next 4 years regarding issues that really impact the city as a whole, or the county really as a whole? But what's on your top 5 things to do?
Well, first of all, thank you both for the compliments you just paid me. I think that's it's very nice and
Well, let me say this too. I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Stout. This is our observation, folks, because people always say, "Oh, you're endorsing this," or our thing is to give you the information, folks. It's up to you to choose who you want, whatever you want. But what me and Mr. Bautista is what we see of the politicians that come, the candidates that come on our show, like CC Bird and like you, Mr. Stout, everyone, stuff that we've seen, because we want to give it from our perspective as a voter. Because me and Mr. Bautista are registered voters, and of course, people with disabilities. But we want to give the full concept or the context to why we're saying things like in the compliments. Because Mr. Stout, if you do it, you deserve it. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying that we should let people know. It's not just a political thing, a hot shot thing, take a picture. But
George,
I do applaud you for that.
The thing about it, George, is that the blind population, the blind and vision impaired population that we represent, through our own disability, they need to be aware of this. If they're not, that's what we're trying to do. We want them to get involved. We want them to know who they can contact, who they can call for issues that affect them. So it's not just about us, trying to be complimentary, but rather, we want to talk to people who are going to do things for us too.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I also for me it's important to serve the disabled community just as I serve everybody, right? I mean, everybody should have access to information the same way, and I also when the pandemic started and we started doing meetings virtually, I asked that we have interpreters, sign language interpreters at our commissioner's court. We never had sign language interpreters before the pandemic, and I always wondered why, but I felt like we definitely needed to start doing that, and so now we're going to continue to have sign language.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And that's the thing that I want people the people that are watching this and hearing this, because I'll put this into an audio podcast. People with disability, folks, and I'll let you speak, Mr. Stout. I do apologize. At the end of the day, people with disabilities, and I think Mr. Bautista will agree with this, we do not want to be treated equal or special. I don't want, I'm special. No. We want to be treated equal. So anything that's accessible to you as a quote-unquote able-bodied person, I want it to be accessible for everyone else. So I'm sorry that. Go ahead, Mr. Stout.
Yeah, and that's also why, my office worked really hard to partner with the Moms on Board group to create an all abilities playground at Escarate Park, at Reisinger Park, and at Gallegos Park. And those
when is that going to be done? So do you know, it started it or not yet?
Yeah, so we did the groundbreaking on those just not too long ago, a couple of months ago. So they're in the works. I think it'll be a couple of months, but that's going to be a really important addition to those parks. One on the east side, one on the west side, and of course Escarate, which is a crown jewel of the county's park system. But back to your question about what's on the horizon, things that we want to work on. I want to continue to work on historic preservation. I want to do a countywide historic survey to look at other areas in the county that we have historic buildings and possibly create more historic districts there, so that folks, because not only does it bring more tourism and put El Paso on the map and help us sell our history, but when we create these historic districts, it's really amazing the benefits that the property owners within those districts can tap into. They can, if they decide to renovate their building, they can get 45% of their renovation costs paid for by the state and federal government through historic tax credits once they're inside one of those districts. And so we also want to preserve those buildings and give people incentive to continue to do so. So I want to continue to work on historic preservation and bringing folks in for heritage tourism. The downtown district designation was not completed. We had some opposition. I want to continue to try to work and figure out if we can get that one past the finish line as well. Economic development, I think, is really going to be very important. I think we've concentrated a lot of our efforts on trying to bring in, big companies from outside of El Paso, and not enough focus. We haven't given enough focus or placed enough focus on just looking at the businesses that we have here and supporting businesses that are here and helping them to grow and incubating business and economic development from within instead of bringing it from outside, developing it from within. And so I'm going to be pushing for lots of changes within our economic development department and our strategies and our policies to look at that. I think that if you look at other cities that are attracting these big companies, they're doing so because the companies see how they've treated the businesses that are there already, and so that's gonna, we just need to go neighborhood by neighborhood, make sure that we make neighborhoods, whether it's the streets, whether it's the parks, the lighting, all the amenities, making sure that they have access to public transit, making sure that they have access to quality of life, right? And that's also going to be what's going to attract, I think, larger companies in the end. And so economic development is going to be a huge one. Of course, healthcare has always been one of my top priorities, even before the pandemic. But with the coming of the pandemic, that just underscored for me the importance of doing some of the things that we were already doing, like our healthy food financing initiative, which was a policy that I created. And we incentivize folks to come in and set up grocery stores or provide access to healthy food within food deserts. I think you saw we've lost close to 3,000 people because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And the majority of those folks passed away due to pre-existing medical conditions that they suffered from. And a lot of time, the majority of those medical conditions had to do, either they were, diet related, right? Hypertension, which is,
diabetes.
Pressure, diabetes, obesity, all of those chronic illnesses that so many people in El Paso suffer from were the cause of the of their death when they got COVID. And so, we need to continue to work to make sure that people have access to food. First of all, a lot of folks still go hungry here in El Paso. Before the pandemic, I think 12 to 15% of our population was considered food insecure, or didn't have enough to put food on their table. And when it comes to children, it's 1 in 3 children in El Paso County,
which is not good,
is considered food insecure. And so these are issues that we were working on before the pandemic. They were exacerbated by the pandemic, and I think we need to continue to work on making sure people have access to food. We need to increase the number of folks that are eligible to receive SNAP, food stamps. We leave $6 million every month on the table when it comes to SNAP because people who are eligible are not taking advantage of that program. That's why I think there's so much burden upon the food bank and the food pantries around town. I think we really need to work to get people access to food, and not just food, but healthy food, right? Because we want our community to be healthy. It of course makes their lives last longer. It makes them more pandemic proof, right? And it also saves taxpayer dollars because, when folks suffer from these chronic illnesses, they go to the hospital for their health care because many people in El Paso don't have health insurance, right? And so they end up going to University Medical Center, which is a county and a taxpayer-funded hospital. And, they end up going to the emergency room, and that's the most expensive way that you treat somebody is in an emergency room, right? And so anything that we can do to attack the root causes of some of these chronic illnesses, we need to spend more resources on. And so that's why I've been working really hard with the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, working really hard with UTEP and also University of Texas Houston campus here, and trying to mitigate that food insecurity.
Let me ask you one question. Excuse me. I have my allergies. How if someone wants to volunteer or donate to your campaign, how can they do that?
Sure. So you can give us a call. My campaign phone number is 915-519-1381, or you can go to davidforelpaso.com, or on any of the social media. It's at David for El Paso, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. It's at David for El Paso, and you can reach out to us and let us know how you may want to help. And we would love to have your help. I've always kind of run a shoestring budget, and try to stay away from fundraising as much as I can, because it's, first of all, it's no fun asking people for money, but second of all, there's campaigns cost money, but when you have people volunteering, knocking on doors, and offering any type of in-kind services, it really is helpful. And so obviously, we would love if folks want to donate to the campaign. That would be great. We're trying to stay away from having to depend upon large donors that or these special interest groups that may that typically donate to campaigns. But we're trying to raise and do as much as we can. I don't like to. I'm not beholden to any group or any
Donor.
for example. But I want to make sure that we can run an effective campaign, right? And it costs money. So and it takes time and volunteers. And I've worked really hard in my past two campaigns. I've knocked on thousands of doors myself. You'll probably see me come by here in the next months, knocking on your door if you live in the precinct. The precinct has changed, and so it's going to be a challenge because my precinct lost most of what I had in the northeast, north of Fred Wilson, and we're picking up areas on the west side, like the Kern area, the Mission Hills area on the west side, and then we're also extending out north of I-10 to McRae right now, or before it was only out to Hawkins, and then south of I-10 we're extending out almost everything to close to Zaragoza, and so we're picking up new constituencies, and so it's going to be really important for us to be able to get into contact with the folks that live in those new precincts that are now becoming part of the district that I represent. And so lots of work to be done, and I would love to have the support of anybody who's willing to do so.
And I bet you it's hard, going door to door, because our culture is like, hide, no dice nada, quiet, don't answer the door.
George, for the most part, people are very, very gracious.
Yeah, they are.
I have people actually invite me in, offer me water, offer me coffee, sometimes food. For the most part, I mean, I've had very, very few people just like slam their door in my face or be rude to me. I think people respect the fact that as a candidate you go and knock on their door.
Exactly.
And that's really the part of campaigning that I enjoy the most. I don't enjoy asking for money, but I do enjoy just being able to get out and reconnect with the people who I represent, to understand what their wants and needs are, to get feedback from them. I mean, I'm not a perfect individual, and far from it. And I like to hear what people think of the job that I'm doing, and if they're not satisfied, I like to hear why. And if there's something that I can work on to make myself better, to make the representation that I give to the people of Precinct 2 better, I'm happy to hear that. And we're always looking for new ways to have impact. We're always changing. We're always just trying to do the best that we can. But we can't represent people well if we don't know what they want, what they
Exactly.
need, right?
Exactly. So, before one more time, Mr. Stout, can you give your phone number and the website one more time?
Yes, the website is davidforelpaso.com, and the phone number is 915-519-1381.
Okay, Mr. Bautista, do you have any last questions before we go?
No, I'm just want to thank him for coming to the show and volunteering to give that information so that people can get to know him, because now he's gonna have some new constituents now that they redistricted or the remapped the district or whatever. But I think the people need to know him, and this is the best way for them to know who he is. And obviously, he's I'm not going to be partial or whatever, but what I'm saying is that people already know him. He's served 2 terms before, so he's an incumbent who has demonstrated that he wants to do things for the people. So I'm not, I just think that the people need to be able to communicate with him whenever they need to.
No, that's for sure. So once before I go, Mr. Stout, as we tell all the candidates to come onto the show, we ask that all candidates, this is whoever's listening to, that you make your flyers accessible for those who are blind, your QR codes, and if you do have rallies or any kind of fundraisers, to please make those areas accessible for those who use wheelchairs, because unfortunately that happens a lot. And what happens is, folks, you lose voters. Okay, you're gonna lose voters. So, anyways,
and clients as well.
Yes, sir. We've got the QR codes on our first piece of walk literature that we're getting out, and I thank you for mentioning the redistricting. That was also a project of mine, a policy that we wrote, and we created a redistricting commission at the county. First time that's ever happened. I think that voting access is really important, and making sure that politics and partisan gerrymandering stays out of that redistricting process is important, because that's how people get disenfranchised. And I also was the only one on the commissioner's court that was pushing for election reform, and this last presidential election, it was because of my office's advocacy that we went to vote centers, which means anybody can vote at any polling place now on election day. And we also pushed to make sure that we had the curbside voting available, the drive-through voting available. Pushed to make sure that we sent out the mail-in ballot applications to all of everybody who is disabled. Instead of just waiting for people to ask us, we just went ahead and sent them out to everybody, as well as increasing hours at polling places. A lot of that was preempted by a law that was passed at the state legislature. But we heard a lot about Harris County doing those things, but here in El Paso County we did those things too, and that was at my request. And so voters are very important to me.
Amen to that. Yes, sir. So, well, Mr. Stout, Mr. Bautista, thank you, sir. I salute you for what you do for the community. And if you ever want to come back, you're more than welcome. Everyone, you're watching the No Vision Internet Radio Show. Thank you, Mr. Stout. Thank you, Mr. Bautista.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Bye-bye.